Hello, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ. Let us dive into the Word. Today's Gospel, which is taken from Gospel of Mark, gives us the story of a Bartimaeus, a blind man sitting by the roadside and begging. And the moment this man hears that Jesus is passing by, he begins out to cry. He says, "Jesus, son of David, have pity on me." And people try to silence him. They try to drown his voice. But Bartimaeus refuses to stay quiet. Then, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, something beautiful happens. Jesus stops out of the entire crowd. Jesus notices the blind man and tells the people around him to call Bartimaeus. And when Bartimaeus heard that Jesus is calling him, he throws aside his cloak and moves toward Jesus. And Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" And the blind man replied, "Master, I want to see." And Jesus tells him, "Go your way, your faith has saved you." But notice this carefully, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ. This man sat there begging. He was in his stagnant place. And the moment Jesus responded to him, he moved, he left his stagnant space. And Bartimaeus didn't just have a faith internally, his faith moved him. His faith made him to rise. His faith pushed him in a new direction. And this connects perfectly with the first reading from the first epistle of Peter, where St. Peter says that God has called us out of darkness into his wonderful light. He wants us not to cling to sinful worldly desires because we belong to ultimately not in this world but heaven. And my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, faith moves us towards the light. You see, this man sat there begging for that many years. And he heard that Jesus is coming, he shouted, said, "Son of David, have pity on me." When Jesus called him, and when Jesus sent someone and said, "Bring that man here, ask him to come," he knew that Jesus is calling him. And he knew that he will be saved, he will be healed. But he did not remain at his stagnant space. This blind man left his stagnant space and he moved toward Jesus. He threw his cloak, he got up, and he went towards Jesus. You see, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, I have a small story to share. In my previous house, when I was staying with my friends, my housemates, and all that, right, my college mates, there was one plant that my this housemate used to keep. And every time he goes outstation, he'll ask me to water the plant. And sometimes, even when I go back to my hometown, I also forget to water the plant. And when we come back, the plant would look like almost gonna die, alright. Brown leaves, dry branches, and all that. But the moment we start watering the plants again, out of the dead parts, slowly a new shoot would begin to emerge. It will become another branch by itself, like a fresh life, a fresh growth. And that new shoot would always grow in a completely different direction. Plants, they just grow in every different direction. And I feel like this is what happens to the soul when it encounters Christ. You see, sin dries the soul out. Worldly attachment drains uh, the soul, drains the life from us. And we begin to wither spiritually while still looking fine externally. But, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, when faith leads us back to Jesus, and when grace and mercy begins watering the soul, a new life begins to grow. Not the old life repaired, not the stagnant space, but a new life emerging. And like that new branch, we also begin to grow in a new direction towards the light. See, many people say that they have faith, but faith is not just believing that Jesus exists. Faith moves, faith responds, faith gets up from the roadside like Bartimaeus. Faith leaves behind the old cloak. Faith changes direction. Because if we stay rooted in darkness, we cannot complain that we do not see the light. Bartimaeus received sight not because he stayed where he was, but because faith moved him towards Jesus. And I feel, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, the same is true for us. If we want healing, freedom, a renewal in life, we cannot remain spiritually stagnant. We must begin branching out towards the light. We can't just stay in one spot, in a comfortable space. And yes, you believe in Jesus, but you are just staying in one place, and we are not giving ourselves chance to get out of our comfort zone, to leave our cloak and move out of the stagnant darkness. So, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, let us ask ourselves today, are we ready to branch out and move in the direction of Christ, the direction of light, away from the stagnant darkness? Because once we move towards the light and truth, life might not be easier, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, but it will be brighter. Have a nice day. Thank you, and God bless.